This is the massive grandstand that I think the Clipsal 500 is truly famous for. It runs almost the length of the straight up to the centre chicane, and today was named after the great Barry Sheen. A wonderful gesture from the organisers of this event. That is now the Barry Sheen stand that the cars are parading past as we speak. And I'll now hand over to the men who'll deliver the racing to you in great Vogel style this weekend, Matthew White and Neil Crompton.
Thanks, Billy, and I guess it's fitting too that they found the biggest stand for the V8 Supercar Championship and named it after Baz, because he certainly was larger than life and he thrilled a lot of people in that stand in particular, and of course right around the country and around the world. We will miss him.
They've waved banners on Baz's behalf in that stand many times over the years.
You're not wrong about that. Let's get into the starting grid for our first official race of the season. Jason Bright has pole position. Not only that, he also gives Team Brock its first pole position ever. Mark Scape will start alongside him in position number 2. Marcus Ambrose and Greg Murphy. You saw what happened in the top 10 shootout. Richards, Johnson, Bow and Todd Kelly fill 5 through to 8. Russell Ingall in position 9 and Garth Tander, courtesy of a mistake in the one-lap dash, finished in 10th position. Cameron McConville just missed out on the shootout. He will start from 11th. And then Rick Kelly. Glenn Seaton from Ford Performance Racing in 13th. Dean Canto has a smile in that photo and a smile all round because he's very happy with his first full-time drive at Team Better Electrical. Paul Dumbrell also joining the rookie list. Simon Wills there for the South Australian-based Team Dynamic. Paul Morris has rebuilt. His BY Commodore crashed at Albert Park. Craig Lowndes will start from 18th. Mark Noske joins us for 2003. Brad Jones in position number 20. Another rookie, Jamie Whincup, joins car number 33 from Gary Rogers Motorsport. Anthony Tratt in 22. Stephen Ellery, car number 31 in position 23. Paul Wheel is there. Also Craig Baird, who's moved to Team Kiwi Racing. Bargwana, Bernard, Mark Larkin, that's position 28. Now the very rear of the field is Ritter and Forbes, Radicic and Romano. We will have 34 starters. 16 of those will be Holdens, 18 of those will be Fords. There is 11 new BA models, 7 old AUs, 11 new, 11 old VX models and 5 VYs. You've been waiting long enough, world ride around the V8 Supercar Championship for this moment in 2003. Let's go racing, and Jason Bright gets the foot down well. Greg Murphy has muscled his way up to the centre chicane. Let's see as they go through turns 1 and 2. Scape holds on to his second position. Bright's out in front. Murphy's there. Ambrose, then Richards. It's single file through turns 1, 2 and 3. Up Wakefield Street they go to the right-hander at turn 4.
Terrific lead from Jason Bright. He's away cleanly and making ground already, and a real traffic jam back through the pack. And if you're anywhere beyond about position 10, this opening lap is a nightmare, and it's been made that much more difficult with that marker that's at the apex of turn 2. Everybody really gets compressed into single file through there. So far a pretty good clean start by the look of it, as Bright just disappears into the distance on cold tyres and the run to turn 8.
This is our first full racing view of the sweeper. 240 kilometres an hour they come into this turn. Look at them go right across to the left-hand side of the track.
Scaife running a little bit of defence there from Murphy as they get down towards the turn 9 hairpin, and buying a ticket to the end game is what this Clipsal 500 is all about. This is a very long, tough, hard motor race, made a little easier by the fact that the conditions are certainly nicer today than they've been in recent years. Good news for tyres, good news for drivers, but you've got to look after your car to some extent here. You've got to have a straight car with everything pointing in the right direction for that last 15 or 20 laps.
Go up and down pit lane, and any team manager will tell you this is a lot like Bathurst in terms of race strategy. You've got to make sure you stay with the leaders and be there at the end. Like Garth Tander said, this race will really start with 20 laps to go. Your race score shows the top 20 through down to 21 and 25. So Bargwana in position 25 at the moment.
Murphy's really harassing on the back of Mark at the moment, and Scafie just wakes up to it and drives shallower that time as they go into 6 and 7.
Yeah, and I noticed something at the start. The car that you're looking at right there, the Kmart Commodore of Greg Murphy, seemed to get a little bit of a nervous jump at the start, and he's been penalised for that.
And he's also just flicked the headlights on. He's probably just getting the information conveyed to him now. There's nothing more frustrating than hearing that message across your radio. But it's a long race. He'll have to take the stop. and then go back out and get on with it as best he can from there, which will obviously change their strategy. But he's got good early pace in that car.
We've got a drive-through for jumping the start. Come in this lap, come in now. Indicator on, indicator on.
That's the message to Greg Murphy, and it's probably just as well that we don't hear the response as he now peels off and will engage the 40k pit speed limit, which is activated at that white line, and it doesn't take much. The pit window is now officially open, and frustration for Greg Murphy, hand in the air. What's going on here?
In many ways, his 2002 was famous for just what you saw, frustration. Remember the 5-minute frustration that he had at Bathurst. I just had my time on that. That was 20 seconds from start to finish of pit lane when he had to have the rev limiter on. Add another 5 or so seconds for entry and exit. So that is effectively a 30-second penalty.
Yeah, it buries him a long way down the pack, but he certainly had car pace early on. But everybody here in this phase at the moment is trying to assess precisely what kind of a car they've got now. Often when you start the race on cold tyres with 120 litres of fuel, which is almost 100 kilos of additional weight at the back. Let's watch Murphy here.
He's
second row.
Scaife.
He has flinched.
Yep.
Of course, we're not seeing the light, which is the other part of that argument. But here's another view, and you can see that it does look like it could be an eager one. And ultimately, Tim Schenken, the race director, was saying the other day that they hope to have vehicle movement sensors in the grid to be able to accurately determine whether there's any movement, and they'll be able to work that against the official timing system relative to where the light is turned on.
Russell Ingall has dropped back 1 position from the start. He's back in 10th. The race score has Lowndes at 16th. Simon Wills at 17th. Bradley Jones, Noski and Ellery make up our top 20.
One of the things that will be interesting as things begin to settle down here is the form guide that you get from the morning warm-up, where people actually do run a race load and run their race tyres. And I would expect there's a couple of guys that have probably got pretty reasonable race pace that we've not yet seen produce their best in qualifying. Ingall's potentially one of those. Escape gets harassed now by Ambrose. He gets a sniff up the inside here. Marcus has a look. Can't quite get the job done. It's very bumpy in that part of the circuit. It's hard to quickly change the direction of the car. Escape's on a bit of a defending mission here. Initially from Murphy, now from Ambrose. Oh, this could end up in tears. The right-hander at 8. Very shallow through his approach run in there.
Long way, Marcus. Just keep it calm.
Message goes to Marcus. Just breathe easy. Escape wasn't prepared to yield at all. Went right across to the other side of the road. Perfectly able to do that. Unless, of course, Ambrose starts to get alongside. And then that changes the way in which the rules are interpreted.
Brad Jones comes into pit lane on lap 21 of 78. We're starting to get a little bit more action.
And I don't think they were fully organised and prepared for that.
Change the tyres!
That's Kim.
You've got to be ready, guys. You've got to be ready.
Well, they're certainly not ready for that one. I mean, they're still dancing around trying to get the rattle guns out.
Oh, dear. This one not going to help Bradley's sense of humour. It's been a pretty ordinary weekend for him. He hasn't been able to get into a satisfactory position with the setup of the car. Yesterday they had a fire just before their what's called the media ride session, where they take people for a run in the VIPs and sponsors and what have you for a run in the car. And then that meant that there was a huge job last night till I think about 2:30 this morning to actually get it running and get everything repaired. It burnt an awful lot of stuff under the bonnet, and he's just had the world's longest pit stop, and actually he's got some damage to the right rear there as well. And Kim's saying be ready in case there's something else, because very often what happens is you'll go out and you'll still have a drama of some description and come straight back in. If everybody relaxes and goes back in the garage, it recycles the whole nightmare. In fact, it was only a few years ago that we've seen people get in all sorts of strife here by not being prepared, because really at this event almost anything can go wrong with the car, and you need to have instant access to your people and your bits.
Well, one of the good things that Brad Jones Racing got out of 2002 was that if Brad had this kind of weekend, it was more often than not that John didn't. So they managed to tiptoe around the major problems and at least get a good performance on the board. Right now, they're both locked in 31 and 32 positions.
Change of position.
He's got him on lap 22.
Scaife is now leading the motor race in car number 1, and Jason Bright is back in second place. So while we were in the pit area, there's been some manoeuvring made, and Mark Scaife gets him on the inside under brakes down at the hairpin. Good clean move, real tight, tough racing, but he gets away with it. So he chipped away, and he's done it on lap 22 of 78. Here's a replay from on board, dives to the apex. He's got a little bit of carry speed just at the right time, gets track position, that's what he needs. Once he gets track position, it doesn't really matter. And he's got up alongside the B-pillar and beyond, and away he goes.
Rewind 12 months ago, those two guys went into that same corner in the same coloured cars from the same team, but Jason Bright had his Watts linkage broken and his rear wheels wiggling all over the place. So this time Mark Scaife gets him under clean racing as Stephen Johnson comes in for what looked like a nice clean pit stop. That's one of the things that Dean Orr was telling me down there at Shell Helix Racing. They just want to be consistent today. They want to set themselves up for Sunday racing, and they want to forget about the dramas of last year. If they can get through with their noses clean, 78 laps today, that'll be a good tick in the box for them today.
And some of what you're seeing here at the moment is just wake-up call stuff. We're back in business. It's not, when you go testing, you do a couple of laps at a time. And, you know, the last time that everybody really pounded around for a long, long time out in the circuit was Sandown last year. It was the first week of December. It's a long time ago, and you've got to get back in the groove, and it's everybody across the entire organisation. Every element has got to work perfectly and coordinate perfectly in order to be able to get a result with these teams and cars. So when any one little thing goes wrong somewhere, it comes unglued very readily, very easily. A drive through for Greg Murphy for speeding in pit lane has just been judged, and want to be inside car 51 when that message comes through. The rear bumper's missing off the Rodney Forbes mobile. And
you want to buy a ringside ticket for when Murph comes in for his next drive-through penalty.
And you may wonder, someone's got a problem.
Oh, that's Mark Noske with a right front problem as he comes through the sweeper and gets out of trouble. Look at the rubber he's flicking out there. So that thing is chopping itself up. That's happened along Bartels Road somewhere, or maybe even before. Thankfully, it didn't happen at the high speed turn 8, and now he nurses it back. The AU Falcon used to have a familiar guy behind the wheel by the name of Neil Crompton. Now Mark Noske gets back to pit lane on lap 24 of 78. Let's check out our race score. Scaife, Bright and Ambrose, Stephen Richards, Todd Kelly, Rick Kelly, Russell Ingall, Craig Lowndes, Glenn Seaton and Paul Dumbrell make up our top 10.
Murphy, who's already had 2 drive-through penalties, and he's taken, I think it's his second stop now. And so when we talk about analysing what's going on in the motor race, it's based on some assumptions that things like what just happened to Jason don't happen. So we don't always necessarily have it right. We've got some telltale smoke from the back of the Lowndes mobile.
Pit, lap, Craig, pit.
And it was worse then as he flipped it on the downshift. And the word, as you quite well heard, and Rodney Forbes and Brad Jones made contact, and that's at turn 4. And no rear bumper on Rodney's car. That was missing earlier.
Just get up to speed.
And so Craig has a problem with the Cat car. What will that be? You don't always necessarily know with smoke-related stuff. Here is the Bright thing. It started on the white paint. He grabbed it, it pulled him to the left, it wanted to drag the car up onto the traffic island, and he's actually done a pretty good job of managing that down. That won't have been such a time loss. I was talking 10 seconds, it wouldn't have been that long.
The earlier he got it, effectively was the better there, because there's the runoff situation as we keep an eye on the Caterpillar Ford out of Ford Performance Racing of Craig Lowndes. They've already told him to pit.
Oh, this looks pretty catastrophic now. It's getting worse. And he's...
I can see why. They're in pit lane.
That's Craig on the radio. He's
Marcus Ambrose is following him as well. So effectively a forced pit stop for Craig Lowndes. That'll be his first.
Nice and close.
Marcus Ambrose has already done his for fuel, so he'll come in for tyres.
Sometimes these, when you see a car smoking like this, it's not always necessarily the obvious engine things. It can be power steering, or sometimes one of the things that can take a pounding around here is the differential. You end up often with very high diff and gearbox temperatures around here, so we'll have to monitor the Cat car and find out whether we can get an update, Darryl.
Yes, Marcus Ambrose had an amazing stop, very, very quick, and obviously watching those new wheel nuts work, which his team is using as well, makes it just that much easier.
Those wheel nuts you're talking about are captive in the wheel, and it's all game, set and match here for Lowndes to put it in the garage. They're calling for the go jacks, which they slip underneath the thing so that they can turn it round within its own length. And CL is forced to sit out the remainder of this race. If it's repairable, then I'm sure they will repair it and get out, because what this team needs, what this car needs, is track miles.
Absolutely, and Craig Lowndes heads into the garage on lap 36 of 78.
Replay here of Bradley and Rodney at turn 4, and the contact made there, and bits of junk scattered on the road. Rodney backs up into the wall there, and it just looked like a classic argument over the same bit of real estate.
Well, there is our race leader, if you like, or the overall leader, because Stephen Richards is still out on the road, but Mark Scaife has green box next to him because he's completed his 2 pit stops. We understand that Greg Murphy has just been given another black flag, so the frustration continues for the Kiwi. More speed in pit lane. It's going to cost him dearly. Well, now you definitely wouldn't want to put 4 wheels over the curb. The left-hand wheels must not drive.
And that'll bring out the safety car, I reckon, and that'll be bad news for Glenn Seaton, who's only done 1 of his stops. So we are into it, and this is going to be a tremendous battle to the flag.
No overlapping or overtaking until they get past that control line, which is now all go as Marcus Ambrose brings us through on lap 44 of 78. A restart to the Clipsal 500. Scaife, Bright, Richards. There they go. Then some Fords tucked in there behind them as well. Sun has come out as they move up Wakefield Street and take on turn 4. Mark Larkham, Stephen Johnson and Todd Kelly. Around to the back straight, the Adelaide straight on Bartels Road. This is where they'll pick up to 240 kilometres an hour. We might try and stay on board with Mark Scaife as we have a look at them going through the sweeper.
Marcus talked before about adjustments, and he didn't say what they were, obviously, because that's part of this game, but those adjustments could include a small variation in tyre pressure. They could include a change to the rear roll centre height in the car, or maybe sometimes somebody will reach in underneath and make a little change to shock absorber, either bump or rebound, just to make the car a little bit gentler on its rear tyres, change its characteristic a little. I've got a fair idea what they probably would have done, but they're not in a real hurry to tell anybody about it, which is fair enough.
After the first lap of the restart, we'll see the official order as they go through. It is Ambrose, Scaife, Bright and Richards. And Stephen Johnson makes up our top 5 positions. Everybody talked about, like Neil said, buying a ticket to the last quarter of this race, if you like. Most of the team managers will break it down into 2 halves. We can save the rears. No risk Saturday is probably the best way to describe this race day, because you need to set yourself up, and a move from Max Wilson on Glenn Seaton ends in tears.
See that one coming from 50 metres out there, because Max's car looked like it was very unsettled, and Seaton quite wisely just allowing the car to drift away from the corner. He doesn't want to back it up into the wall, and that's ended what was looking like a reasonable run. Here's the replay, and you can see that Max's car is unsettled. He had Murphy in behind him and nowhere to go except into the right rear quarter panel of Glenn Seaton's car, and that's at turn 4 at the end of Wakefield Street, and it's on back in the pack there as well, and Bright and Scaife getting stuck into it for 2nd and 3rd.
Some contact there on the front right of Jason Bright into the rear of Mark Scaife. We understand there's a bad sportsmanship warning to car number 10, Mark Larkham. And I was just thinking the last thing that Greg Murphy needed to do was get caught up in that tangle between Wilson and Seaton. Murphy has now done 3 drive-through penalties in pit lane. From top to bottom, it's around 30 seconds, so he's counted off a minute.
Just be patient, Jason.
A minute and a half. The PlayStation 2 race score indicates that Ambrose, Scaife, Bright, Richards and Johnson have all completed their 2 compulsory pit stops for tyres and fuel. Todd Kelly is in 6th, but he's only done it for fuel. The other guy in the top 12 is Garth Tander, who now gets the green light after completing both. Remember, the pit window opened at the end of lap 2. It will close after lap 57.
So Ambrose making good gains on everybody here. These three cars that are scrapping for the minor placings are all affecting each other's performance. And all the time, that blue car is just sneaking away ever so gently into the distance. Here's a replay. The Strathfield replay shows Jason Bright just tagging Mark Scaife and gets his left rear as they go through the right-hander at turn 9. This is looking backwards from Mark's car, and Jason turns in, clunk. No big deal, but a little bit unsettling for both parties. Scaife will have temporarily had a spike in his heart rate and gone, and Bright will be doing much the same.
It's very close in this part of the field. As you look at Russell Ingall, he's in position number 7 with some race tape dangling off. And Craig Lowndes has rejoined. So the Ford Performance Racing team have been working on the Cat 6 car and got it back out to rejoin this race. Of course, he's well and truly out of the running. Jamie Whincup goes up the inside at turn 14 on Paul Morris. $100,000 damage done to the Paul Morris Ciramo Wines entry at Albert Park. Paul Dumbrell and Morris coming together at turn 2. Morris came off worse for wear. Now, Paul Wheel and Garth Tander are fighting for position here as well. That's 11 and 12.
Remember that Tander was making pretty good progress early in the race, and then on some fluid, we think he got crossed up on the way into one, went across the traffic island, almost rolled the car as we take this stop with Brad Jones, and ended up resting up against the wall, and that would have dropped him back in the track position order. And now he's trying to regain some ground. And the problem with this field is that whenever you give any of these guys track position, even one position, it's very hard to get them back. The cars are close, the drivers are close, and if you lose 3, 4, 5 spots or more, it's real hard work to get them back.
Cameron McConville goes diving up the inside at turn 9 and takes over from Mark Larkham. So McConville is holding now position 8 at the moment. Probably would have picked up a shot or two there.
It's got a lot of roll in Russell Ingall's car, hasn't it? It's quite a soft-looking car.
Didn't last long, the reinvention of Craig Lowndes and FPR. He got out of the garage, did one lap, and is now pulling the shutters down, I would say, on Saturday racing.
8 laps to run. The order at the moment: Ambrose, Scaife, Bright, Richards, Johnson, Kelly, Ingall, McConville.
Ingall in 7th position. You'll see it tick over on your PlayStation 2 race score. So we're getting to the closing stages. Most of the field has been pretty well behaved to start the season. We're on board with Stephen Richards, who's holding down 4th position at the moment.
He was very strong here last year as well, if you recall, and I think he was on the podium in the overall result at the end of the race weekend. I think he got a 3rd position as well. So, and he's a very strong endurance racer with a couple of Bathurst victories to his credit, and he's coming up onto the back of Stephen Ellery there at the moment, and Ellery's car looking very unsettled into that last hairpin. Richo's very happy in this team, and he's got a good car, and I think he's one of the drivers that's pretty comfortable about the fact that he knows and understands this model car pretty well at the moment, and this is a very good, strong way to open his account. Ditto for this man, Stephen Johnson, who's 6th at the moment, just in front of Russell Ingall and just behind Todd Kelly. There's Todd, turn 4. That's the red wall on the outside we talked about before that Jason Bright autographed earlier in the race.
Those details that you're asking about as far as gear changes per lap, it's around 24 changes per lap. So for 78 laps, 1,872. So times that by 2 across the weekend, and there you go.
It's a lot.
That's it. Equals a lot.
See, Russell's got his left-hand window down, and a lot of the windows have actually, funnily enough, electric control, and he's probably reached the stage of the race where it's a little less than pleasant inside that car, so he's gone for a bit of additional ventilation, which when they actually do aero tests, when you drop the left-hand window, it really kills some of the performance on the rear wing, and obviously changes the amount of pressure inside the cabin, but sometimes you just need the air, and you're better off to have a breathing driver and maybe lose 0.5% of aero efficiency, because often you find an engineer giving you a lecture about why you should keep it up, and you go, well, that's great, but breathing's real handy.
Although Mark Scaife seems to do without it for the one-lap dash, so it can't be too vital across 3.22 kilometres. Marcus Ambrose is now closing out the final stages of this race. Their back markers in front of him down Bartels Road, the Adelaide Straight, lights are on. If I remember correctly, that's where Marcus Ambrose ended up his 2002 campaign when he had a DNF in race 2 at Adelaide. He had to park the car halfway down Bartels Road. Turn 9 for the last time.
It's David Bernard just circulating slowly there in the FPR car. Some problem, they're going to get to the finish, but not very fast.
He started from 3rd on the grid. They had their problems at Albert Park in the non-championship round. Stone Brothers, as far as Marcus's car went, they went away and fixed them. And they've come back for the first round of 2003 and have said to the Red Rockets, you better look out. And the season starts with a dash of blue as Marcus Ambrose wins race 1 of the Clipsal 500.
Absolutely brilliant. And the car choice was just right, mate. So, good start to the season, where we left off in 2002. Back in the pit.
Exactly, because Marcus Ambrose won the final round of 2002, the ultimate at Sandown. He had a clean sweep with qualifying first, pole, and then 2 race wins. So they finished off 2002 and said, let's keep the momentum going for 2003. The BA Falcon gets its first official win of the championship. Russell Ingall took a BA Falcon to victory, as I mentioned, in the non-championship round. And it's lights flashing for Marcus Ambrose. Rusty.
Well, the cheers have gone up down here at Stone Brothers Racing. Ross, how good does that feel?
Yeah, that's excellent. We've never ever won this race. We've been in town a few times, but never been invited to the party. So this time that's good.
Just talk us through the day. You know, did it go according to your strategy?
Yeah, we thought our car was pretty good, but in that first stint before we done fuel, it wasn't quite right, so we made a small adjustment. After that, the car was excellent, and our guys done a good tyre stop, which got us out ahead of Scafie, and I think that helped us on our way.
How much were the fingers crossed on the run home?
Oh, the fingers are crossed the whole time, because this is good for the team, because the guys have worked so hard.
Great stuff, Ross, and have a good one tomorrow, hey?
Thanks, yep.
And that's the real key to it. Have a good one tomorrow, because the job's only half done, and that's the big task down here. A big engineering task as well, because you know, just getting these cars through at the end of a grueling 250k race around a real tough track, and then multiply it by 2 and go through that whole process, and it's hard on the driver body as well. But this is a great moment for Marcus Ambrose and Stone Brothers Racing, and another strong performance from Mark Scaife. There's Jim.
Look at Jimmy Stone.
He's thrilled. These guys work hard. They work very hard, and acknowledges his rival Mark Scaife, which is great sportsmanship. And Holden Racing team would be happy with their opening account as well. In the end, the margin was only 2.2 seconds, but it actually stabilised on the lap previous at just over 4 seconds. So Marcus unbuckles. He's got the safety net down. Those levers in front of the anti-roll bar controls for the front and the rear, the gear lever. Wriggles out of this thing. It'll be pretty hot and dusty, but his fitness has been up to it. Greg Rust will be with him shortly, and we'll get a word with Marcus Ambrose. It's an excellent drive from him, and that car just looked beautiful. He's going to do an Elio Castro Neves here. Is he going to climb the fence? And and there's still a few Ford fans out there that have had some pent-up energy that they've wanted to expend for a while. And as he said himself in the cockpit a minute ago, picking up where we left off after that great run at Sandown last year. Greg?
Well, Marcus Ambrose, a fantastic result. How did the car feel towards the latter part of the race? Everything seemed to be good.
Yeah, the car was better than me, that's for sure. You know, there was a real stalemate there for a while, and Scaife pushed me all the way. You know, it's quite incredible. You know, after 78 laps, you still got to push on, and what a credit to the team. You know, we had a really bad Grand Prix, bounced back with a win. You know, this sets our championship off.
We might get you to take your helmet off here, and we'll keep talking to you, but the race itself just seemed to be faultless as far as the team was concerned. The car, you know, the debut of the brand new BA, we saw it at Melbourne at Albert Park, but it's fantastic here in an endurance race. You couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah, just fantastic. You know, the team won the Grand Prix, and we won here as well, so we're only halfway through though. We've got another leg to go tomorrow.
How do you feel?
Well, I feel pretty tired right now, but you know, we'll bounce back tonight, and you know, got it to be done.
Super start to the year, mate.
Yeah, thank you. All the best.
Mark, you had the better on Marcus in that first stint. You could pull a bit of a gap on him, but after those stops, then he seemed to have the benefit again.
Yeah, it was a bit weird, Darryl. I said to the guys, when we put the second set of tyres on, it wasn't quite as sharp. And we've had that a little bit sometimes where, you know, it just don't quite respond as well as we would like. In the first part, the car was definitely the fastest car. As the day went on, it wasn't. But it was right up there. It wasn't too far away. And I made a couple of pretty ordinary driving errors where I locked the back brakes and almost speared myself off. So I actually, discretion was a better part of valour. I needed to finish. And to be up there was good.
Car's come a long way since Melbourne.
Well, I mean, you know yourself when you're on a bit of a beast and they want to hurt you, and as soon as you turn at the corner they want to swap ends or arrow you off. That's a great effort with the guys to make such a big change in only 2 weeks.
A little bit cooler today, probably not as hot as last year, but still looks like it was a damn hard effort.
Yeah, look, what was hard about today, there was very little safety cars, and I didn't actually have the fan on for the first 25 laps. I forgot to put it on. And I was heavily in a battle almost all day. Like, I had to really concentrate hard. And that's actually harder on you. It's like driving in the wet, isn't it? You know, you end up working harder when you've got to concentrate so hard.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Well, Jason, a great result, but I guess you'd be ruining that lose.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, a lot, actually. But, yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I was just trying to let Murph through. He was lap down, and he had new tyres and everything, so he was obviously going to get us. And just tried to lead him through cleanly and got out in the curve, I think, or the marbles or something. And yeah, back in the tyres, just lucky we didn't do any extensive damage, and we were able to sort of motor on.
Did the car feel strong for the race?
It was using its tyres more than the guys in front, unfortunately. We thought we had a pretty good package going into the race with tyres, but we were able to match them for probably 15-20 laps after a yellow, but from then on they were just drawing away a few tenths a lap.
This and the first race at the Grand Prix are a wonderful debut for this new team.
It's great, we've got a great bunch of guys. We haven't done any testing yet because of all the dramas with Vesco thing. We're associated with TWR, and we're really looking forward to getting out and doing some testing because I'm sure that we can get a bit more out of this old BX yet.
Sunday's payday. Good luck.
Yes, thanks, Greg.
He knows all about Sunday payday here, Rusty, because he did it a couple of years ago. 2001, Jason Bright brought it home on Sunday and took out the overall round win. Marcus Ambrose, though, throws the first punch of the Clipsal 500. Can he deliver a knockout blow tomorrow and give Ford the first round win of 2003? Right now, the race score says this: Ford 1, Holden 0, Mark Scape 2nd in race 1, Jason Bright 3rd. We go down to the top 10 and see that Greg Murphy fought his way back after 3 drive-through penalties to get into 10th position and pick up 69 points for the day. Jamie Whincup in his debut for the V8 Supercar Championship Series as a solo driver gets into the top 20. So too does Dean Canto. And back down, well, quite a few stories of heartbreak and mechanical problems. Max Wilson had his troubles, so too did Stephen Ellery. John Bow posts a DNF for race 1 of 2003. What does all that tell us? Well, it tells us that the battle will continue between Stone Brothers Racing, Holden Racing Team. Maybe it tells us that we've got a lot to look forward to in terms of the new models of cars. The BA and the VY, as this season goes on, are just going to get closer and closer racing, which is all good news for us. We'll come back here at Adelaide and wrap up the Clipsal 500 on a day when Marcus Ambrose took out race 1 of the Clipsal 500.